Welcome to a Faithful God podcast. I'm your host, Tammy Rotzel, and today on the show, we're going to talk about 3 powerful ways that you can be a light in this dark world. So grab those earbuds and your favorite beverage and join me for today's show. Well, hey friend, happy Friday. I hope you are doing well, and I hope you've had a wonderful, wonderful week. I'll tell you, my husband and I have been doing a lot of spring cleaning these past, quite a few weeks, trying to get things done outside, trying to get some things done inside. We have company coming next month, and so just trying to get some things done and spruce the place up a little bit. So we've been busy, and that's what I've got planned for the weekend is more sprucing up and just cleaning. I'll be honest with you, I do not like to clean. I'm not a cleaner. I used to be one that was very diligent about it every single week, but I just don't do it anymore. I think it's because of the fibromyalgia, and it's not just when I clean and I'm bending down and moving things and all of that. It's not just I'm getting old kind of sore thing. It's I am like in severe pain. So I think that's why I don't enjoy it anymore. But anyway, I hope you're having a good week, and I'd love to hear what you are doing this time of year, and just, what are some of the things that you do in the spring. I'd love to hear from you. If you're watching on YouTube, comment below. If you are listening on your favorite podcast player, send me a DM. So listen, today we're going to talk about being a light for Jesus. And, this is something we kind of talk about all throughout the episode, or that we've talked about many, many times throughout the episode, is just really showing up with a servant's heart. And so we're going to talk about that today. So in today's show, we're going to talk about the difference between shining our light in the light and shining our light in the darkness, and why it's so incredibly important. We'll dive into Philippians to uncover what Paul says and what Paul teaches us to do about being a light for Christ. And then we'll wrap up with 3 practical ways that you can actually start today and be a light for Jesus. Plus, at the very end, I'm also going to share a cheat sheet for you with 20 ways that you can be a light, that you can shine brightly for Jesus in this really, really hard world. So I don't know about you, but I have got all these candles throughout my house, primarily on this ledge. I have one of those ledges in my living room that's way up high, and I display a bunch of stuff up there. And so I have battery operated candles up there that, they're the ones that you turn, or they automatically turn on at a certain time of the night, and then go off at a certain time of the night so that we don't have to deal with them, right? And so this time of year, as we're going into spring and the days are getting longer, when those lights first come on, because, in the winter, or at least where I am, right around 5 o'clock or so, it's really getting dark outside. And so we can see those lights, right? We can see the candle, we can see the light when it's dark out. But when it's this time of the year and the lights go on, the timer or the candles go on, you can't see them very well. You kind of have to look at them like, they kind of blend in and you don't really see them. They don't stand in stark contrast to the dark, right? Like it does when it's dark outside. And I just, quite honestly, I don't get up and change them until it's time to change the batteries in them. Then I know I go up, I reset the timer to make it a little bit different for so that we can see it, or it comes on a little bit later. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time getting this out, but I will change, when I change the batteries, then I'll change the time that they come on. So that way, then it's more in the evening, as it gets dark outside. But my point in all of this is so that when you're picturing this, I want you to picture this candle that is on during the day, or in the evening when it hasn't gotten dark outside. I want you to picture this candle. You really can't see it much, can you? It's not really in stark contrast like it is when it's dark outside. When the night falls and that candle is on, we can see it burning brightly. We can see it burning beautifully. So if you think about it a lot like this, just as Christians, when we're around other Christian friends and mentors and family members, which is wonderful. And of course, we want to be around all of them. But when we're shining our light for Jesus, it really isn't in contrast, is it? It kind of all blends in when we're around all of our Christian friends and family and mentors and all of those things. We're not really in contrast, and we tend to blend in. Think about it like each of us holding a candle in the daylight, right? And none of us is really standing out much. In other words, none of us is really, though we're talking about Jesus, we love Jesus, and we're there together, which is wonderful, but we're not really shining brightly for Jesus in the way of, let me think about this, how to say this, because we are shining brightly for Jesus, but in the way of others that aren't Christians, right? Others. We're not shining brightly where others can see that light. Are you with me? Am I making sense? I hope I'm making sense with this. But when we step away, and we go out into the world, right? You and I can both agree that this is a crazy, hard, chaotic, loud, messy world. This world is nothing like what God intended for us. Am I right? So when we step away from the others and into the darkness, right? The darkness of the world that is nothing. Again, nothing like what God intended for us. It's a world that goes against everything that Jesus wants for us. But when we get into the darkness of the world around us, and all the things that were never ever what God intended for us, that's when we stand out. That's when we start to when others start to see Jesus. Make sense? So what we want to do when we're shining for others, we want to go out and be a light in this hard, chaotic, messy, loud world. If we're out spewing more hatred, more ugliness, that's not shining for Jesus. What it's doing is, and you hear people say this all the time, we see people all the time that have been really burned by the church because they're not allowing God's light to shine through them. They're choosing to be judgment, right? To be judges instead of loving. You see, we aren't called to judge, my friend. We're called to love. Plain and simple. Jesus takes care of the judgment. We don't. And so we're called to love. We're called to walk in a way that allows God's love to shine brightly through us. And that's how we learn to be a light in the darkness. And it's where we learn, where others see Jesus more, right? That's where we make a difference in the world, right? What is our ultimate calling? To make God known and bring him glory. And we make the most difference in the world when we're out there shining brightly in the midst of the darkness. So in the Book of Mysteries, Jonathan Cahn states this: it is at the very time when it's hardest to shine the light that it is most crucial that you do it. Let me repeat that again. I'm all about repeating something that is just so powerful. It is at the very time when it's hardest to shine the light that it's the most crucial that you do it. Man, think about that. In this world where we're having a serious identity crisis, in the midst of a broken relationship, in the midst of, whatever it is, whatever the mess, the pain, the hard times are, that's when it's most crucial to allow God's light to shine through us. That's when we're called to shine brightly for him. You see, we have to make that choice each and every day to go out and act different than the world. We have to go out. We have a world right now where everybody's spewing out their opinions. And let's face it, it's easy to do. It's easy to get caught up in all of that. It's easy to be when we don't agree with someone, to get our backs up and to just, gosh, not be very Christian-like, right? But what we have to do in those times, it's especially, just like Jonathan Kahn said, it's especially in those times when we allow God's light to shine through us. That's what makes that's when it's most important. That's when it's more powerful, or the most powerful is when we're choosing to shine the light even in the darkness through our actions. My friend, this isn't about, again, going out there and spewing all the things that you think needs to happen, or all the things that, this is what Jesus says, this is what the Bible says, you need to do this, you need to do that. That does not bring people to Jesus. When our words and spewing out judgment and hatred for our fellow man is not shining brightly for Jesus. Here's the thing. I mean, we're just hearing it just more and more and more in this world right now. And yeah, there are so many things going on that, golly day, not at all what God intended. Again, I know I've said this multiple times, but it's really true. We were watching a show last night, as a matter of fact, and one of our favorite shows, Chicago PD. I don't know if you guys watched that one, but it was all about It was all about this young boy who was gay, and his parents kicked him out of the house, wouldn't speak to him anymore, and some really bad things wound up happening to him, as you can imagine, on a police show. And I won't go into all the gory details because it was tough. It was tough. It was about sex trafficking and all, just some really hard things. But the thing is if the fact that the parents, and hear me clearly, I'm not saying this in judgment, and I realize that this was just a TV show, but the fact is this is happening all over the world right now. And I again, and I'm not laying judgment as to how the parents were reacting. That's not my place to judge. But all I kept thinking throughout the show, and again, I know it was fictitious, and I understand that it was, but the thing is those are the times that we need to embrace and show God's love the most, right? It may not be the way God intended, but we're not called to judge it. We're called to love unconditionally. And again, I guess what I'm saying is this particular episode plays out in homes all over the world every single day. Whether it's a gay son, a gay child, a gay daughter, whether it is a child that is not identifying, as a girl or a boy, as what she was born, the gender she was born with, whether they're identifying as cats or dogs or unicorns or, Lord have mercy, just all the things. The thing that we have to do over and over and over again is choose to be a light, choose to love God, or to love that person with all our hearts, and just walk in love. And this isn't easy, my friend. It's not easy to be a light to be a light in this dark world. It's really not. And I'm fully aware of that. The other thing is, think about all this. I think about this. I need to grab a sip of water. I think about this, when I've been scrolling, or when I'm scrolling on TikTok, and you see those funny little videos about, the people going into work, and, when that one coworker starts talking and you're like ready to like just cover your ears and just like stop talking, I can't hear this kind of thing. And I giggle about those things, but those are the times too that we need to be showing love. Those people that are hard to love, those people that maybe pluck on our last nerve. Those are the times that this is when the rubber meets the road, my friend. Situations and scenarios like all that we've talked about, and that I've talked about so far today, those are the times, like Jonathan Kahn said, when it's most crucial that we choose to be a light in the midst of darkness. And so I want this episode, my prayer for this episode is for you to not to get down on yourself, not to, because here's the thing, none of us walk this out perfectly, and that's okay. God doesn't expect perfection. He just wants us to lean on him, to help us through all of this. But that's what we do. And we're going to talk about this more in a little bit, is we have to choose to be the light, even when we don't agree with someone's lifestyle, when we don't agree with someone's choices, when we don't agree with, when we have a broken relationship, when someone has hurt us. Man, oh man, is that hard. But you see, this is when we are going to make the most difference. This is when we're going to stand up and really fulfill our ultimate calling, is when we choose to be a light in the midst of the darkness. So I want to get into Philippians chapter 2, verses 12 through 18 for just a moment and really, really talk about, in my Bible, as a matter of fact, it says right in here that this passage is literally shine brightly for Christ. This is what we want to do. We want to strive to shine brightly for Christ. And I love this because Paul is talking to the church of Philippi, and he's talking to them and explaining to them, this is what we do. This is how we shine brightly for Jesus. And in verse 12, this is what it says. Work hard to show the results of your salvation, obeying God with deep reverence and fear. For God is working in you, giving you the desire and the power to do what pleases him. So a couple of things here that I want to talk about this particular verse. When it says work hard, it says work hard to show the results of your salvation. We're not working hard for salvation. That's already been given to us. There's absolutely nothing we can do to earn that salvation. But what it says is work hard to show the results of your salvation. And one of those ways to work hard to show those results, and the thing that Christ says, and I apologize because I didn't put this in my notes, and we've talked about this before, which I'll bring back in a moment. But, Christ gives us a new commandment in the New Testament. Again, I can't remember where it is, but he says, love your neighbor as I have loved you. I think that's how it goes. But basically, that is the most important thing that we are called to do. And when we're choosing to be a light in the darkness, when we're choosing to be a light, when we when we don't feel anything but light, right? We're choosing to walk in love. So again, I want to reiterate that this verse is not about earning salvation. It's about choosing to live or shine brightly in the darkness so that they see the results of our salvation, so that they see God in us, right? Make sense? And then the other part of that was that God is working in us. You see, that's one of the most important things we can ever ask God is, change me, Lord, right? Our whole relationship, as we're building our relationship, and as a matter of fact, I teach this inside Confident Prayer Warrior, but our entire, I just lost my train of thought, forgive me, but our entire relationship with God is allowing him to change our hearts. It's allowing him to align our hearts, our thoughts, our desires with his. And so we've got to remember to say that prayer. Change me, Lord. Align my desires with your desires and your will. So we've got to, it's very, very important that we do that. And I love that passage right there from Paul. But when we go down just a little bit further in verses 14 through 16, this is what it says. Do everything without complaining and arguing so that no one can criticize you. Live clean, innocent lives as children of God, shining like bright lights in a world full of crooked and perverse people. Hold firmly to the word of life. So again, what we're doing, it's telling us, I love this about the Bible. The Bible tells us exactly what to do. You want to know how to make it through? You want to know how to walk this out? This is what you do. This is exactly what you do. You show up, you do everything without complaining and arguing. And you do it so that no one can criticize what you're doing. You do this so that they can see Jesus through us. And when we walk this out with an attitude of serving God, with an attitude of being a light, no matter what, then we're walking in alignment with Jesus. Then we're walking and living like Jesus did. Then we're shining brightly for Jesus. This is huge, my friend. This is absolutely huge. This is exactly fulfilling our ultimate calling by going out and being a light, choosing to be a light in the midst of the darkness. Is it easy? No. Do we want certain things for our children, for our families, for the world around us? Absolutely we do. But one thing we've got to remember is that we want God's will over our own. And although we have all these ideas of what we think God wants, we have to allow God to do the work. We have to allow God to do the changing. What we're called to do is just show up and be a light. What do I mean by that? Here's what I mean by that. I recently have been praying a specific thing, and I'm not going to get into the details because it involves other people. And if it were just me, then I would share the details. But I've recently been praying for something, and it's something that I feel pretty confident this is what God wants. However, I don't know 100%, right? I don't know 100%. I know what I want. I feel very confident about what I want in this situation. And so I've been praying for God to do the work in this, for God to give me the opportunity to speak if he wants me to, for God to work in the heart of this person, for God to give me the words at just the right time, to give me the opportunity to have this conversation if need be, and to give me the words, no more, no less. I always say that, no more, no less. We don't want to make it about us. We want to make it about God and his truth. And and just yesterday, as a matter of fact, to be perfectly honest with you, just yesterday, God answered my prayers. God did the work. So often we feel like God isn't doing this. And we just talked about this in last week's episode about God's perfect timing. And so I was prepared to have this big conversation with someone, this really difficult conversation. I wasn't sure how to start, what to do. And before I even started, that person brought up the subject to me, and God had already changed their heart. God had already done the work. And by the way, obviously, as with all of us, we'll continue to do the work because it's not just a one and done thing, right? We know that. But God showed up. I literally did not have to say a word other than to be a light and to be supportive. And by the way, I'm not patting myself on the back. Let me tell you, this is humbling. This is a lot of learning lessons. But what we have to do in the lives of those around us, when we're choosing to be a light, we have to allow and we have to strive to be, to want God's will more than our own, right? We don't want, and I think about this a whole lot with my kids because that's something, we try to, I know in our lives, we've really worked, and I want my kid to do this and I want this to happen and this to happen. And what I've had to learn over the years is, I want more than what I want to happen. I just want God's will in their life. And there have been many times that I thought that I knew what God's will in this was, and I was wrong. Man, let me tell you how humbling that is. That's hard. Talk about laying down your pride. Those set me back. A couple of those times that's happened when I thought for sure I knew the right thing. And God showed us later that no, I was 100% wrong. Yeah. All he wanted was for me to love them. That's it. That's all I had to do. He is doing the rest, right? What is the, is it, I'm trying to think of the battle. Was it the battle around Jericho, or was it, I can't remember, but one of them where Jesus is saying, I think it was King Jehoshaphat when, and by the way, we talk about this in the battle plan. I can't remember the episode off the top of my head, but I will link it in the show notes below. But we talk about a battle plan when King Jehoshaphat is crying out to the Lord, like, I'm about to face this impossible situation. And the Lord comes back and says, this battle isn't yours. It's mine. It's mine. So when we're stepping out, when we're jumping out and doing what we think is best, what I want you to do first is take a step back and say, wait a minute, is this going to shine brightly for Jesus? Am I going to be a light for Jesus in the way I react to this situation and the way that I respond to this situation? Or am I going to allow God's will, allow God to do the work, allow him to take care of the battle? There's a big old battle, like many, 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 many battles that we have going on in this world right now. Many, many battles. And all we're called to do is to be a light in the midst of the darkness. Friend, this takes time. This isn't a one and done thing. This isn't I heard Tammy say this, and so now everything's going to be easy. I'm going to do this super well and perfectly, walk it out perfectly. That's not going to happen. I'm telling you that right now. I know that's hard to hear. We have to train ourselves to think this way, to behave this way, to walk it out this way. We have to train ourselves to be a light for Jesus. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to step out and maybe not respond well from time to time. It happens. So what do you do in those times? What you do is you then confess right then, Lord, I didn't handle that the way I should have. I confess that, Lord. Forgive me, Lord, right? We repent and we say, Lord, I'm sorry, but convict my heart next time. Remind me next time to take a breath before I step out, to take a breath before I respond. Remind me to take a breath so that I can tune into you, right? Put my focus on you, look to you for the right reaction, and so that I can be a light in the midst of the darkness. Friend, this is where you experience pure, like true joy and fulfillment. When we choose to be a light in the darkness, that's where we experience joy and fulfillment. Not in our circumstances, not in our finances, not in our careers, not in our success. True joy and fulfillment comes when you start choosing to be a light in the midst of the darkness. So let's talk about 3 ways that you can learn and that you can be a light in the midst of the darkness. Number 1, extending love to others in every situation. Now, we literally just had back in February, end of January, beginning of February, had a 2-part series on unconditional love. It was episode number 105 and 106. And by the way, if just to help you out here, when I mention episode numbers, all you have to do is go to footprints-of-inspiration.com/ and then the episode number. So footprints-of-inspiration.com/105 or footprints-of-inspiration.com/106. But of course, you'll want to start with 105 because it's a 2-part series. But we just talked about unconditional love, just did. And we talked about number 1, part of that is, God's love for us is unconditional. And so we receive that. That's a vertical kind of love that we open ourselves up to and receive from God. But then it doesn't stop there. We actually then have to extend his love to others in every circumstance. Is this easy? Absolutely not. It's not, right? We have emotions. We have feelings behind things. It's not easy, but that's what we have to strive to do. We don't have to walk it out perfectly. God just wants to see our hearts and see that that is our number 1 goal, is to be a light in the midst of the darkness, to extend his love to others. So again, you can go back and listen to those episodes. footprintsofinspiration.com/105 is where you can start. Second way that we can learn to be a light in the midst of the darkness is by practicing humility. Right? We have to long to do right more than be right. Did you catch that, my friend? We need to long, if we want to experience, if we want to be a light in the midst of the darkness, we have to long to do right more than be right. We have to long to give life more than get even. Those are huge, my friend. We need to long to do right more than be right. We need to long to give life more than get even. Those are so crucial. By the way, that's from The Power of the Praying Wife. Right in the very first page of that book, she talks about that. But if we want to be a light in the darkness, if we truly want to fulfill our ultimate calling and to love others unconditionally, this is what we have to do. We have to humble ourselves. We have to humble what we want to see happen. We have to humble ourselves and surrender our desires for God's desires. And we do this by longing to do right more than be right. We do this by laying aside our desires and humbly standing before the Lord and humbly obeying the Lord, right? The results, we're showing and demonstrating the result of our, Lord, of our salvation. Sorry about that. Just had a brain burp and it just went right out the window there. But anyway, that was number 2, humility. Number 3, we have to choose to be a peacemaker. In a world with so much conflict, so much chaos, so much just loud, messy, hard things, we have to choose to be a peacemaker in order to be a light in the midst of darkness. When you go into work that day and everybody's all up in arms because something, the boss threw down a deadline that was, an unexpected deadline, and now all of a sudden chaos has gone on, or the computers went down, or what have you. Everybody goes into this big tizzy and just panics, right? Panics. In those moments, you can be the light in the midst of that darkness. You can be a beacon of light. You can be a peacemaker in a world. Like, think about that for a minute. If you've got 2 ways to respond when something happens in your life. You have 2 ways to respond. You can respond with panic and fear and just complete stress where you're barking at everybody, right? Because we all do it. That happens from time to time. Or we can choose to be a peacemaker and bring down the stress of all of those around us. That's what I want to do. How about you? I have no doubt that's what you want to do too. Is it easy? Absolutely not. So much easier to react. But you see, as we learn, right, this is building those spiritual reflexes. What I mean by that is we keep training ourselves to do these things. We keep practicing. Each day we strive to do better than the previous day. And when we keep doing that, then we're building those spiritual reflexes, because at first we're not going to probably walk it out very well, right? But as we learn to, train ourselves to be that light in the darkness, eventually it's going to become second nature. And you're going to bring that peace into that darkness. You're going to bring that peace and shine brightly. Bring that stress level down in the midst of it. Now, how do we do this, right? We talk all the time about prayer, We simply go to God and say, Lord, how can I best serve you today? Friend, you've heard me say this. If you've been with me for any length of time, you've heard me say this on the podcast over and over and over again. And I am not going to quit saying it, because that's what we're choosing to do. That's how we live and fulfill our ultimate calling, is by showing up with a servant's heart, asking God how we can best serve him today, asking God but to say, Lord, help me be a light to everyone I touch today. We just have to worry about today, right? Don't worry about tomorrow or the next day or next week or next month. All we have to worry about is today. Take it one day at a time. Start out in the morning and say, Lord, help me to be a peacemaker today. Help me to shine your light in the midst of the darkness. And, we start this out because there are so many things that happen throughout the day that we have no idea they're going to happen, right? And that's where the stress comes in and the chaos and that. And so we start that morning off saying, Lord, when that happens, if it happens, when it happens, just remind me to be the peacemaker. Remind me to extend love. Remind me to humble myself and choose to be a peacemaker in the midst of the chaos, in the midst of this dark world. So friend, I know I told you about the 3 ways that you can be a light in the midst of the darkness, but I also promised you a free cheat sheet, 21 ways that you can be a light in the midst of the darkness. I am telling you what, my friend, when you start living these things out, right? We don't just read the word. We're not just exposed to the word. That's not enough as Christians. We actually have to apply it to our lives. We have to walk it out if we really, really want to experience true joy, fulfillment, and to show up and serve God, to get to heaven and have Jesus say, "Well done, good and faithful servant." Right? That's what we want. And if we want that, then we've got to walk it out. So I put together a list of 21 ways that you can be a light in the midst of the darkness. So just hop on over to footprintsofinspiration.com/shine. That's footprintsofinspiration.com/shine. Did I say that right? /shine. That's a tough one to say. Hop on over there and you can download that freebie to really, really help you shine in the midst of the darkness. Listen, friend, I could not be more excited. I could not be more honored and humbled to show up and serve you each and every week. Honest to goodness, you are the reason I get out of bed every morning. I could not be more excited to just show up each and every week and really, really take you by the hand and help you learn how to walk it out, how to apply God's word to your life, and how to grow stronger and closer to Him, how to grow a deep and meaningful relationship with our Father. And so I just want to thank you for showing up each and every week. And listen, if this show blessed you today, would you do me a favor? Would you mind sharing it with a friend? That is my mission, is to get out there and serve as many women as I possibly can to really help shine brightly, to be that light in the darkness for Jesus. So if you would just, grab the link wherever you're listening, text it to a friend, share it on social media, I would be forever grateful. And then of course, wherever you are listening, be sure to subscribe to the show. If you're watching on YouTube, leave me a comment. I want to hear from you. I love, love, love connecting with you. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast player, then what I want you to do is send me a DM. Let me know the one thing you're going to choose to do, right? We don't want to try to change everything, because when we try to change everything, that just is too overwhelming and it falls by the wayside. I want you to pick one thing, whether it was from the 3 that we talked about today or from the 21 ways cheat sheet. Pick one thing that you're going to do today. And again, drop it in the comments below or send me a DM and tell me what it is you're going to do. Just one thing. That's all you got to do. We're just taking it one step at a time. We're not trying to run a marathon. We're just trying to do better today than we did yesterday. We're trying to shine more brightly today than we did yesterday. So I want to hear from you, and I want you to let me know that one thing that you're going to do. All right, my friend, listen, I love showing up each and every week, and I will meet you back here next week for another episode of A Faithful God podcast.